Something is wrong with this forest. Pine trees twisted at impossible angles. Spider webs hanging crooked, asymmetrical, as if geometry itself had been broken. On the ground, red insects crawl, but the patterns on their backs are distorted, wrong. A bird flies overhead, and when you look closely, its beak is deformed, stuck half open. There's a reason for all this. This forest sits inside one of the most radioactive places on Earth. Not far from here, the largest nuclear disaster in history occurred in 1986. For humans, this area remains uninhabitable to this day. But nature stayed. Plants and animals. Wolves, deer, wild horses, birds, insects. But the radiation changed them. The explosion. Spring 1986. Dead of night. Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant has just exploded. Massive amounts of highly radioactive material, iodine, cesium, strontium, are hurled into the air. The radiation seeps into the cells of every living thing in the area, including this deer. 30 minutes after the blast, it's dizzy, barely able to stand. The radiation has burned the mucosal tissue inside its digestive tract. Cells across its body begin dying. Blood circulation in the brain fails. Pressure builds inside the skull. The deer's blood pressure crashes. Seizures. Multiple organ failure. By the next day, the deer is dead. The red forest. In the following days and weeks, pine needles change color. First yellow, then red. Trees die for kilometers around, giving the area a new name, the red forest. The dog. A few kilometers away in the town of Pripyat, a shepherd dog lives with its family. For the past day it's been feeling sick, tired, nauseous. Its owners are worried. They feel unwell too, though they don't know why. Then a voice crackles over the radio. Residents are informed about an accident at the nuclear plant. But they're assured everything is under control. Just to be safe, people should leave town for 3 days. And leave their pets behind. The family assumes they'll return soon. They leave enough food for the dog for a few days. But the Soviet authorities are lying. They're covering up a nuclear disaster of unprecedented scale. This family will never return. Their dog is on its own now. The hunt. 3 days later, the food runs out. On the 4th day, the dog leaves the house, hungry, searching for anything to eat. It encounters other dogs wandering empty streets. They too were abandoned. Suddenly, shots are fired. Soviet authorities have ordered police to kill all stray dogs, an attempt to stop them from spreading radioactive material. The dogs flee into the forest. Just like all other animals here, they find themselves in the heart of the world's largest nuclear exclusion zone. The invisible killer. Radiation remains dangerously high for months. Many animals develop chronic radiation sickness. Blood pools in their livers and spleens. Lymph nodes swell. Thyroids fail. The animals grow thin. Many die. But over the next 10 years something changes. Radiation levels drop significantly. The only humans left are workers guarding the ruined nuclear plant. Beyond that, the area is almost completely abandoned. In this vast empty space, wildlife spreads freely. Over the years, the zone evolves into one of Europe's largest nature reserves. Bears and lynx. Moose and foxes. Multiple wolf packs. Even some original residents remain, hundreds of street dogs, descendants of the pets left behind. Swallows skim over treetops. Frogs leap through undergrowth. And they're all followed by their silent companion, the radiation. The signs. The first thing you notice are the eyes. One of the first signs of radiation exposure is cataracts, a cloudiness of the lens. It blurs vision. In severe forms, it causes total blindness. High radiation levels in Chernobyl cause many animals to develop cataracts. The landscape itself has changed. This is a normal pine forest, green needles, straight trunks. And this is a pine forest in the most contaminated areas of Chernobyl. Twisted trunk, stunted, misshapen. The wood has changed color. If you look closely at the rings, you can see exactly when the disaster happened. Near the base, there are strange clusters of tangled leaves called witches' brooms. This forest doesn't just look eerie, it's a stark reminder of what our actions can do to nature. The warped patterns. Spider webs. Normally neat and symmetrical. But here, in Chernobyl's most contaminated areas, the gaps in the strands are too large. The patterns are warped and chaotic. This is what a barn swallow usually looks like, distinctive blue-black feathers and red face. This one from Chernobyl has white patches on its face. Its tail feathers are crooked, beak deformed, stuck slightly open. A lump protrudes beneath its plumage. A tumor. Many changes aren't visible from the outside. You can't see that this swallow will live a shorter life and have lower chances to reproduce. Red firebugs are native to Central Europe. Their vibrant red and black coloring with symmetrical patterns helps ward off predators. But Chernobyl firebugs are different. The patterns on their backs are warped and asymmetrical. Some are missing an eye. The fine black lines are blurred. DNA destruction. All these changes trace back to mutations in the genetic code. This is where DNA is stored, the blueprint for the entire organism. DNA is made up of two strands twisted together in a double helix. It's composed of base pairs. The genetic information is stored in the sequence of these bases, like a computer carrying information using ones and zeros. Genes act as a blueprint. They determine how the bug looks, the pattern on its back, what it can digest, how long it lives, its vulnerability to diseases, even its behavior. Radioactive atoms like uranium and cesium are unstable. They decay spontaneously, releasing radiation. That radiation carries so much energy it can damage living cells the moment it makes contact. It can break DNA directly or split water molecules in a cell, creating particles called free radicals. These free radicals then rip through the DNA. Base pairs can be swapped or deleted entirely. Or the entire DNA strand can break apart. When radiation hits DNA, it damages it. Most of the time the damage is repaired. But often if there's enough radiation, this damage persists. Sometimes it leads to cancer, a tumor, or some other developmental problem. Many mutations have no effect. The body repairs them or they occur in parts of DNA that don't serve an important function. But sometimes those repairs go wrong. That's when lasting changes happen, like the ones we see in Chernobyl. These changes can even be passed down to future generations. The black frogs. But some animals around Chernobyl aren't just mutated. They seem to have adapted and are thriving in their new environment. This is a tree frog. Normally, tree frogs are green. But here in the exclusion zone, some are pitch black. The dark pigmentation likely comes from melanin, the same substance that makes your skin darker in summer. Your body produces it to shield skin from sunlight. But melanin can also help protect against other types of radiation. According to a 2022 study, the darkest frogs in Chernobyl were found in areas where radiation levels used to be especially high. So have they adapted to high radiation? Some scientists aren't convinced. They say the data isn't strong enough to prove a causal link. Inside the Chernobyl zone, there are light frogs in highly radioactive areas and dark frogs in clean areas. That's one of many scientific debates around Chernobyl's wildlife. What can be verified and what's too speculative? Both sides hold firmly to their findings. The immortal fungus. There's another organism that may be putting melanin to work, this black fungus. One grows right inside Reactor 4, one of the most irradiated places on the planet. Radiation levels remain so high that nothing should survive here. And yet this fungus is thriving. Multiple independent studies suggest this fungus may actually be using gamma radiation as an energy source, much like plants use sunlight for photosynthesis. Unlike in frogs, the melanin in this fungus doesn't just block radiation. It seems to convert it into energy which the fungus uses to grow. Melanized fungi like this have been found in other highly radioactive places. Astronauts have even studied it aboard the International Space Station. Researchers hope that one day this fungus could act as a natural shield against radiation, perhaps for space travel. The wolves. Larger mammals may have adapted to radiation exposure as well. Biologist Kara Love and her colleagues at Princeton University suspect that wolves living in the Chernobyl exclusion zone may be less likely to develop cancer, or more resilient to it overall, despite constant exposure to high radiation levels. The theory goes like this. Random mutations in DNA make some wolves less vulnerable to cancer. These wolves have a higher chance of survival, while others die from radiation's long-term effects, often cancer itself. The survivors reproduce. Natural selection happens. Their offspring inherit the protective genes. Over time they breed with wolves also better adapted to radiation. After a few generations the whole pack is less prone to cancer. Researchers say the wolves' DNA evolved in regions around genes linked to the body's immune response to cancer. But is that actually realistic? The research hasn't been published yet, which means there's no way for us or anyone else to verify it. The debate. This study and many others have one thing in common. They all suggest the Chernobyl nuclear disaster may have triggered evolution right before our eyes. Other scientists remain skeptical. Timothy Mousseau, biology professor at the University of South Carolina, has spent years studying Chernobyl's creatures. He reviewed all published literature claiming to test for adaptations and rapid evolution. In every case except maybe one, the data were too weak. They did not have the scientific strength to support this hypothesis of adaptation. Musso studied potential adaptations himself. He and his colleagues sampled bacteria colonies in Denmark and at various sites across Chernobyl, colonies often found on swallow wings. Back in the lab, they exposed both sets of bacteria to radiation. Some colonies from Chernobyl actually reproduced better under radiation, especially those that had lived for years in areas with moderate background radiation. By contrast, colonies from Denmark and those from the most contaminated parts of Chernobyl were far less resistant to radiation. Because the experiment was carried out under carefully controlled lab conditions, researchers are confident this adaptation wasn't caused by any other environmental factor. The invasion. To study the animals of the exclusion zone, Timothy Musso set up around 100 motion-activated cameras throughout the area. In late 2021 they recorded something strange: Russian soldiers. In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Russian troops occupied the exclusion zone for weeks. Overnight, nearly all research in Chernobyl ground to a halt. Some scientists were forced to flee. When Russian forces finally withdrew in spring 2022, researchers returned to find their work in ruins. Military vehicles had kicked up radioactive dust. Offices and labs had been ransacked. Computers and valuable equipment were stolen or destroyed. Long-term surveys were interrupted. Some irreplaceable research data may be lost forever. Several promising studies were put on hold indefinitely. Kara Love and her team never got the chance to return and study the wolves in the field. It's a bitter blow to our understanding of the world. The creatures of Chernobyl remain mutated, adapted, or simply surviving against all odds. They are living witnesses to humanity's greatest nuclear disaster. A reminder of nature's resilience and our capacity for destruction.